Adiz steps out of the airport like someone coming home after a bad winter. She has been gone for years, but the city still remembers the fall of her name. Her ex-husband Kwesi runs the company that used to be hers by reputation, and now the building smells of panic. Lobby whispers say she ruined him, and men in suits stop talking when she passes. She listens to the gossip with a calm that looks like a smile. Inside her bag is a dusty USB and a paper file. She found them hidden in an old server during the exile, the slow proof of a secret deal that stole the company from under her and lined Kwesi's pockets. Emails from a shell on another coast, transfers that match invoices with no work, names that tie a quiet number to an offshore account. She does not shout. Instead she waits until the right hour when the market is still soft and trust is thin. She knows how rumors work. She will use that whisper and flip it into light. She has already sent copies where they will burn the loudest. She knows the cameras, the investors, and the fear in boardrooms. The lobby grows smaller each step. People that taunted her now avoid her eyes. Her smile is steady. She is not here for revenge. She is here to take back a story that was stolen from her, and she holds the proof that will make the whole city listen. The old server was smaller than she remembered, a dusty box tucked behind plastic files in a shuttered data room, but when Adiz pried it open she felt a quiet kind of thunder. The USB she found was wrapped in tape and stuck under a bracket as if someone wanted it to vanish with the years. She brushed off dust and plugged it into a clean laptop, the kind of machine she kept for exact moments like this. The folders were labeled in bland corporate code, but the contents were not: spreadsheets with rounds of transfers, invoices that looped back to empty contractors, calendar invites that matched wire dates, and email threads that named a shell company in Nalavu in the same breath as Kwesi's private account. The papers on the screen matched the pattern of theft she had always suspected, the small clever entries that hide a big theft. She took screenshots, exported raw files, and made a tidy index so nothing could be dismissed as rumor. She could have raged, she could have posted a dramatic leak, but Adiz knew how markets and truth move. Loud scenes make noise and then forgettable echoes, but precise proof in the right hands makes institutions act. Before sunrise, while the city slept and trading desks were still warming up, she chose 3 targets: a large pension fund that held votes, a regional sovereign investor known for quick moves, and a top asset manager who could force a formal review. She encrypted the files, wrote a short note that laid out the facts without flame, and sent the package through secure channels with red receipts turned on. She asked for confidentiality and for immediate review. Then she waited for the slow machine of finance to wake. Her timing was not about causing pain, it was about clearing a path for facts to work. By the time the bell was due to ring, those 3 institutions had people on the phone, attorneys pulling the emails, and compliance teams opening files with white gloves. The effect was not dramatic in a tabloid way, it was surgical. Internal auditors who had once been ignored now had evidence they could not shelve. Custodial banks that had rerouted funds were suddenly named and probed. The small USB became a map that led straight to the missing money and to the people who had made sure the tracks were faint. Adiz stood back from her screen and felt a calm she had not felt in years. She did not need to shout. She had given the right people the truth, and she knew once institutions began to move, everything else would follow. It starts with a single clip no longer than 30 seconds, sharp and cold in its simplicity, Kwesi speaking on a call, his voice calm, saying things that match the transfers. The video cuts to a clean screen showing transactions with the same dates he mentions. The caption is small and exact, no shouting, just the facts laid out like a receipt. Someone in a business chat posts it at dawn and it spreads like a live wire. At first it moves through private groups where traders and analysts share gossip, then it becomes a public thing on feeds across Elora, picked up by young journalists and ordinary people who love to unmask power. The clip is short enough to watch in a minute and true enough that it does not need commentary. People clip it, translate the captions, add timestamps, and within an hour it is everywhere. The tone is not giddy. It is a record. Screenshots of the transaction sit beside Kwesi's own words, and the combination looks like a chain that cannot be shrugged off. Kwesi's phone rings non-stop. He texts his lawyers. He asks his PR team to draft statements and to find a way to make the numbers mean nothing. He calls investors he thinks are loyal. Meanwhile, group chats flood with messages: sell, ask questions, explain, call compliance. Shareholders who only a day before accepted vague answers now want a meeting and real proof. Trading desks react first. Algorithms that watch for panic notices pick up the sell orders and push the price down faster than humans can type. Hedge funds sniff opportunity and add to the pressure. By late morning, the company's ticker is bleeding value and headlines ask for a response. The board finds itself under a public microscope. Reporters call the corporate office and the exchange. Influential voices on social platforms demand that regulators look at the emails and transactions. The clip becomes a living document. Friends of the company whisper that someone must explain the offshore names. Employees watch the news feed and worry about their jobs. Local influencers debate whether this is a personal attack or the start of real accountability. Adiz watches all of it without cheering. She knows how fragile public opinion can be, and how loud moments like this can push people to act. She also knows that viral reach alone will not close a case, but it will force doors open. As Kwesi scrambles to contain the damage, the momentum has already left the room where he once felt safe. Questions stack up faster than answers. Shareholders demand transparency and boards demand an emergency meeting. By afternoon, the market is still falling and the city is talking about one short video that changed a company's fate. The room smells like burnt coffee and old power, the kind of concrete calm that only a boardroom after a crisis can hold. Directors arrive with the look of people who have practiced shock, papers clutched like life rafts, voices low and sharp. They call the meeting at dawn because the market will not wait, and because once a rumor becomes a fact, every hour is damage. Adiz walks in not as a storm but as a quiet fact. She is there as a creditor's nominee, the face of people who want their money back and who want the company to survive. When she enters, conversations stop and a few heads turn the way they do for someone who used to run rooms like this. For a second the chair fumbles, then remembers protocol and asks her to state her position. She places a slim folder on the table, nothing dramatic, just the evidence she already sent to institutions and the outline of what she will ask the board to do. She offers two simple choices: expose and correct, or accept a clean transition. She is not loud. She speaks clearly and in short sentences that leave no room for the evasions directors have used before. She names the auditors she wants, the protections for staff she insists on, and the legal route for recovering diverted funds. She points to the governance steps that will keep creditors and employees safe if they choose the clean transition. As she talks, memories click into place in the room. Directors who once doubted her competence recall meetings where she solved far more complex problems. A couple of younger board members nod because they see in her plan a path that avoids headlines and keeps value for shareholders. Older men who had tried to sideline her hesitate because she is not asking for revenge, only for a process that cleans the house. The mood shifts from panic to calculation. Arguments come fast. Some directors want to block everything and pray this blows over. Others say the truth should be laid bare and the company rebuilt on clear ground. Votes are counted inside conversations. Calls are made to compliance and to external counsel. Through it all, Adiz keeps her face steady. She reminds them that the market will react to action more than to words, and that a plan announced now can stop the slide. She offers to lead an independent review if they will allow it, and she promises employee protections so workers do not become collateral. By the time first light breaks across the windows, the split board begins to close ranks around the plan she laid out. The moment feels like a test and a turning point. Directors who had whispered her culpability now find themselves asking for her counsel. The panic that entered with the dawn has begun to turn into a kind of focused energy, and in that pivot Adiz sees her chance to shape what comes next. Adiz had expected resistance, but she had also prepared for it. In the quiet hours after the emergency meeting, she moved through the city with a small team and a clear plan. She had spent the morning speaking to big investors one by one, not with speeches but with facts and offers they could not ignore. She reminded them what was at risk and what could be saved. She did not promise miracles. She promised a legal, binding pact that would pool their votes for a short, clear purpose, stabilize the company, install interim leadership they trusted, and launch an independent audit. The pact was paper and signature and law. It was not a rumor. It was a contract that turned scattered worry into a single force. When she returned to the boardroom, she placed the signed pages on the table and let them speak. The faces around the table shifted. Directors who had hoped to ride out the storm realized they now faced real votes, not just loud words. One by one, phone calls that had been private became public. A pension fund manager texted a short line. An asset manager sent a scanned signature. Votes moved like dominoes. The mood in the room changed from brinkmanship to counting. Kwesi tried to rally allies, but the momentum had already slipped. His calls went to voicemail or to quiet refusals. People who had once followed him now counted the cost of staying loyal. Adiz did not gloat. She spoke simply about responsibility and the work ahead. She nominated a short list of leaders and laid out an honest timetable for the audit. She insisted on protections for staff so the company would not collapse while the truth came out. As the votes were tallied, murmurs turned to audible approval. A director who had been hardest on her folded his hands and said he could not in good conscience block a plan with such institutional backing. Another, worried about reputation, said transparency was the only way forward. By evening the shift was complete. The room that had once whispered her blame now rose to propose her name. There was a pause, the kind that comes before a city learns a new fact. Then someone called the vote. The result was almost ceremonial. She was nominated interim chair. A few stunned gasps cut the air, followed by a steadier sound, the clapping of people who know the world can be rebuilt if someone will do the hard work. Adiz accepted with a short, calm nod. She felt the weight, and she felt a new kind of responsibility. The coup was not a show of power. It was a practical, legal shift that moved control from secrecy and fear to clear rules and watchers. By the time she walked out, the story had changed. She was no longer the woman in the lobby rumor. She was the person the city would now watch to see whether she could make the company whole. The cameras in Mangala's financial studio hum quietly as Adiz walks to the desk, her presence calm but commanding. The lights shine bright, but she does not flinch. Across the city and the continent, millions are already tuned in, curious, anxious, or eager to see how the story unfolds. She opens the folder of emails she had collected, the chain of messages that trace every diverted payment, every hidden offshore account, every step of Kwesi's embezzlement. She reads aloud, carefully, letting the words land without embellishment. Each line hits like a small shock, a truth too precise to ignore. Her voice is steady, measured, confident, and the audience leans in. She does not attack Kwesi personally. She only presents the facts. Then she announces an independent audit, naming a reputable firm that will examine the books and report publicly. She lays out the process in plain terms, showing that transparency is no longer optional, and she pledges protections for every employee, from cleaners to managers, so that people will not be punished for corporate failures they did not create. As she speaks, calls and messages flood the company helpline. Investors want clarity, reporters want confirmation, employees want reassurance. Social media lights up with clips of her reading the emails and explaining the audit. Kwesi sits in another city, watching the broadcast, realizing that the empire he thought secure is unraveling in real time. Legal advisors scramble at his side, but the damning emails have already reached the public. Shareholders tweet and post, asking for accountability, and financial analysts dissect every line on live channels. The stock continues to wobble as the reality of the truth hits the market. People who had whispered doubt in boardrooms now hear a voice that commands trust. Adiz does not celebrate on air. She speaks for clarity, for fairness, and for rebuilding. Every word she says is amplified by her calm authority and the undeniable proof in front of her. By the end of the broadcast, the story has shifted. The company is no longer just Kwesi's empire. It belongs to the people who work there, to the investors who demand honesty, and to the public watching as one woman holds power not for revenge, but for responsibility. Kwesi sits frozen, the reality of his choices reflected in millions of screens, and Adiz steps back from the desk knowing that transparency has begun, and nothing will stop the reckoning now. Kwesi sits across from Adiz in a glass-walled office that catches the morning light, his face tight with a mixture of anger and disbelief. For years, he built his empire thinking he was untouchable, and now everything is exposed. Adiz does not yell or berate him. She speaks clearly, evenly, laying out the facts as if reading from a ledger of inevitability. She gives him two choices: full cooperation, step down quietly, and protect what dignity he has left, or face public prosecution where the emails, transfers, and shell company evidence will be examined in courts and in the headlines. There is no room for debate, no clever maneuvering left. The weight of the moment hangs over the room like a silent judge. Kwesi opens his mouth, closes it, and for a while, only the sound of the city beyond the glass fills the space. Pride and fear fight inside him. He imagines the courtrooms, the public humiliation, the irreversible loss of everything he built, but still, he hesitates. Adiz waits calmly, her eyes steady, not needing to push. She knows the patterns of men who think themselves untouchable, they always miscalculate the cost of pride. Finally, Kwesi reaches for the resignation letter. His hand shakes just slightly, but he signs it, choosing pride over preservation. The moment is almost quiet, yet it carries the sound of a city watching. That resignation letter immediately becomes the headline across financial news, social media, and business forums. Kwesi resigns amid embezzlement scandal, they read, alongside the proof Adiz had already released. Analysts dissect the emails and transfers again, this time with the official resignation as confirmation that the house of cards had fallen. Adiz watches as the story solidifies her authority, her calm and careful strategy now undeniable. The market reacts with relief, the boardroom breathes easier, and employees feel a sense of security returning. Kwesi's empire, built on secrecy and shortcuts, evaporates not with a dramatic outburst, but with a quiet, inevitable acknowledgement of truth. Adiz does not gloat. She takes the resignation letter, files it with the board, and positions herself to lead the next chapter. The world sees not just the end of a corrupt reign, but the rise of someone who navigated every twist, every threat, and every chance at chaos with clarity and precision. In the space of a single morning, a city, a market, and a company recognize her authority, and they know it is unshakable. By sunset, the office hums with a new energy. The board, investors, and staff no longer whisper, they call her Madam Chair, and the title sticks with respect and hope. Adiz walks through the corridors with a calm smile, knowing the weight of the day, yet feeling the shift in every glance, every nod. The company that had teetered on collapse now has a path forward. She speaks to the team in plain, clear words, laying out plans to rebuild honestly and responsibly. Hiring from local communities like Tembisa becomes a priority, giving opportunity to people who had been overlooked for years. Every decision signals transparency, fairness, and a commitment to doing things differently. Investors who had been nervous now see a leader with steady hands, a mind for strategy, and a moral compass that matches the city's eyes. Employees, who spent the morning uncertain about their jobs, feel security returning and a sense that the company can rise from the chaos. Adiz's story spreads quickly, first across business news, then social media, and soon the entire continent takes note, a woman who had been written off, who returned from exile, who navigated betrayal and secrecy, now leads a major company with authority and integrity. The narrative shifts from scandal to hope, from ruin to rebirth. By the time the sun dips behind the city skyline, the company is not just surviving, it is beginning to thrive under a leadership that promises accountability and opportunity. Adiz stands in her office, looking over the city she once left, realizing that what began as a personal battle has transformed into something far larger, a corporate rebirth that will be studied, admired, and talked about for years to come. The day closes on a quiet triumph, a moment when power, justice, and vision align, and Madam Chair becomes a symbol of what can happen when courage meets clarity.